Sure, sure.
But yeah, so I grew up in Santa Barbara, which is on just a little bit north of LA in Central California. And then I ended up going to school up in San Luis Obispo at Cal Poly. And so when I was a freshman there, um, it was definitely like a big change for me. I felt like I definitely like didn't really have a ton of friends and like was just kind of experiencing college and being on my own for the first time. And I just remember kind of trying to find my place and just like I think more than anything, just figure out like where I like fit in and the things that I found important and kind of trying to find a community based around that. And I remember meeting a friend of mine who was in a dorm next to me, and he invited me to this guest speaker at Cal Poly, and it ended up being this guy, and I was trying to remember his name before the call, but he essentially was a guest speaker. I don't know if he was from Be the Match, but he spoke about his experience. He had leukemia, and uh, it was, yeah, I mean, essentially, it was his personal experience talking about how um, this 17-year-old girl donated um, bone marrow, and then his whole experience of like getting the good news that yeah, that he had matched with somebody. And then I think if anything it was really cool to hear just the follow through with that in terms of like after he had recovered, meeting her and just I don't know, I just think like it was for me it kind of like struck this chord, especially just being like in a place where um I didn't necessarily feel super connected with anyone. And
Okay.
so it was like super inspiring to be able to hear about this just like super deep connection that you have with this person by being able to help in that way. And I remember like it ended probably 8 or 9 at night, and I went straight home and like went on Be the Match and requested the like the starter pack to get like the
Okay.
swab and everything like that. And so it was cool because I definitely just felt like I just instantly had this just inspired connection with feeling like that was something that I could do um, to yeah, I don't know, just at least just like feel like I could help somebody. It was I think at that time too it was interesting because I'm just this broke college kid who am just trying to figure my life out and didn't necessarily feel like I had much to give, but it was super cool because I felt like his whole message was that like you always like there always is something that you can give, and a lot of times it's your time and sometimes it's even just the fact that you're healthy, like there's these aspects of giving that kind of go outside of just, donating to some cause or to a foundation or something like that. And and then within I think it was probably 2 months, I got an email that I had been like a preliminary match, and I almost didn't even realize like how special that was because I just I don't know, it's almost like yeah, with all of it happening that quickly, I just assumed that it was something that was pretty normal, like everybody that signed up there would be like something that would come through like that or that you would match pretty quickly. So I didn't really think much of it, but just through the whole process of um yeah, just I think when I first realized when they told me that I need to fly down to City of Hope is when I really realized like, oh man, this is really legit, this is like the real thing. Um and that still is probably one of the bigger just memories that I have from the whole experience is just mainly, just this like blonde surfer kid with his backpack on going into this hospital where there's a lot of children that are going through chemo. And it was just such an eye-opening experience for me. And like, it was super humbling, I think, because I didn't even know what to think or feel. But it just made me at least feel like I was trying to do my best to give what I could. And especially talking to the doctors, it was like the kind of screening process and everything was such a positive experience for me because I felt like all the doctors and everybody that I was talking to um, were just so fired up and so passionate about what they were doing, and it was super motivating to hear how all of them, because I was 19 at the time, we're all just saying how the the chances of a successful like match and everything just is so much higher if everybody was able to donate when they're my age, because they're saying some people you know don't find a match or something until they're in their 30s or 40s. And so it was cool because I just, yeah, I don't know, it just felt, it made me feel super like stoked to be there, and it was just cool to kind of hear their side of it, where they're pretty much saying like if everybody could donate while they're this age, like we would just see such a positive results in terms of just like the success rate and everything like that. And
It's a very I'm not the smart, like those doctors, not the smart type of person that understands the science behind it, but the easiest way for me to understand this, to your point about why younger donors are so important, is you can be on the registry until you age out at 61. And technically, yes, when you're in your 30s, your 20s, your 40s, you could get called as a potential donor. My cat's meowing behind me, but no matter how healthy you are, biology is biology, and what happens when you're younger, just you could be the healthiest 50-year-old, healthier than an 18-year-old, but your body when you're younger is able to produce more blood stem cells, and so that's the main thing. So that to their point, that's the why behind it. But yeah, you're hearing that too. That if we could just get more people that are just starting their lives, going to college, trying to figure out what their purpose is in this world, to step up and do something like this. Is kind of what I'm hearing from you. You felt like you
for
had
sure.
this newly defined purpose in addition to figuring other things out, which is pretty cool.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think that the coolest thing for me, just even from there, moving forward into, finishing college and then continuing to be kind of in this creative career where, yeah, like you're really trying to kind of figure out these like ebbs and flows of trying to make it happen, And I think that specifically like in college, it was like super eye-opening to me because I just felt, yeah, like there's kind of this like higher sense of purpose that like you do realize that like after like everything could maybe not feel like it's going your way, but like the fact that you can get up and go for a run to clear your mind, or like just having health to be able to do what you want to do is like, I don't know. I mean, I've taken that for granted like most of my life, and I think that that was like one of the biggest, you know, factors that kind of still to this day like helps me realize how lucky anybody is, and myself included, like to be able to have good health to be doing like what I want to be doing. Um, and that's what I think was like probably one of the biggest rewards of that. And if anything, it was just like really eye opening to see how, um, yeah, just to see how important it is to just be giving in some way, because at the end of the day, it's like, when you're trying to kind of give something and without asking anything in return, it's like uh, that's kind of where you feel this like fulfillment, and it kind of transcends like this weird, or like it transcends like having a goal and achieving it and feeling that reward from that. It's like this, it's kind of this reward that just comes from knowing that you're just trying to help it however you can. And at the time that was like really the only way that I felt like I could. And then but it like kind of sparked that feeling that's, it's like addicting, and I think that like moving forward, as I was like starting to be able to have more income and everything like that, it's like you've realized that it is important to just continue to try to like be doing that. When I got back, I started a job on campus at Cal Poly. It's called the Disability Resource Center, and it's a free service that allows for like aid with students with mental disabilities, and then like transportation services for students with physical disabilities. But um, I worked at that job from my freshman year through the rest of college, and that was kind of just an extension of that. I think that
Wow.
I feel like I get a lot of fulfillment and just like a lot of satisfaction out of like feeling like I'm trying to do something is and so it was it's just interesting. I think that I think that whole process of donating bone marrow like really sparked this feeling of satisfaction and of reward for trying to just help however you can. And
So
even
yeah,
just
you were having this feeling that, like you said, it couldn't be manufactured. You didn't know what it would be like until you went through that of this, like you said, selfless act, finding a greater sense of purpose in addition to your day-to-day life and where that's going to lead you. So what I'm hearing you say is that donation experience sort of set the stage for you to take on that role in college, right?
yeah
That so
yeah
that and then inspired you. And so very interesting that in a way what you're saying is it sort of rerouted your life a bit. Is that what I'm hearing?
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that like from that day as I was going through college, I think it just helped me really like, I don't know if it's like compartmentalized, but it just kind of helped me like separate things that are happening or just circumstances in life that like you really do realize are just kind of trivial. um, and it's hard to kind of find the gauge of that, I guess, until you until you have something else to compare it to. And I think that that's what really helped me through college, through after college, was just finding this like finding almost like a gauge of what's really important and what's not even worth worrying about. And I feel like that's what was like one of the biggest things that from the whole experience of donating bone marrow that still helps me today is kind of having like a little bit bigger picture awareness of um, really like what's important and like what's valuable and what is worth kind of going after. And that's what I think was the coolest like part of it. And it's still it still helps me today, I think, just
Wow.
um with everything going on and stuff. Like now is like a better time than ever, with people kind of um being in this place, whether they're you don't have work or are kind of just seeing like a lot of these like unforeseen circumstances where um it's like so much of it's out of your control. And then especially like if trying to kind of give or like give to certain causes and stuff, I think right now is probably feels like more of a stretch for most people than any time before. But that's kind of the magic of Be the Match, is that it doesn't it's like so much outside of a lot of those circumstances. It's like if you're healthy, like you have something to give and you have something to share with people. And that's what I think has been so cool about it. And even just I felt like it was cool from the donation process and stuff. Like um my grandparents, like it was just super interesting because they're dairy farmers. They don't really, they're super humble people and don't really say much or share much about their feelings. But it was cool to come back and kind of tell them about that process. And they were old enough to realize that obviously like something like that could happen to them. And I think they were like, it was really cool to kind of just hear my grandpa, who was talking about how like proud he was and stuff. And it's something that like, I don't know, it's so much outside of like work or anything like that. But it's like they understand that importance. And it's like because they're kind of old enough that they are in that place. And I don't know, I just felt like my relationships with my family and my friends, it just like everything just kind of seemed to me like there was a little bit of this everything just felt super like I was just trying to be more intentional about the things I was doing. Um it kind of was all just stemming from realizing that like um there's a lot that we can do. And like our time and our effort can, it's easy to kind of like let it just fall by the wayside, I think, with um just being distracted with like social media or whatever else. But There's so much
Mhm.
that you can do if you're like trying to just constantly be like renewing your mind and like being trying to just continue to just figure out ways that you can help. And most of the time it isn't money, you know, like most time someone might just need somebody to talk to or something like that. But yeah, I think that that's what is so cool because it makes you just feel like you're the most like you are like you have so much to give and you have so much to share with people. It like makes you feel super strong, I think. Even if you like, yeah, if you don't feel like you have much to give, I think that that's like it's super powerful experience and everything. So yeah.
Well, what is, the fortunate thing about me working at Be the Match and being in the social media space is the fact that I do have the privilege to talk to several people that have done what you've done, or patients too, that
Mhm.
are on, living a healthy life because of people like you. And going back to the donors, though, everyone's got their own story, which is what is really fascinating. And also, unfortunately, I'm probably too old at this point where I'm going to get called, but I'm always hoping that I will. And so just the thing that's really unique about your story that I have to call out is, I'm going to ask this question because I know that people are still going to wonder this, but
Mhm.
this whole time you're talking about, you went through and you talked about, like, I did this, I got called in 2012, not too long after I had joined, and I did this. You're talking about how your life is changed from this, which a lot of people do say, but you're really going into that a lot, and that's really inspiring. But that is what you're focused on, is I guess the point that I'm making is how it has shifted your view of things all the way to this terrible year that we're having,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the positive that can come from something like we're going through now, that there's still something people can do that's in their control, and that's amazing. So I just really want to, I mean, anyone that's watching this, I'm sure they're going to want to say this to you directly, but on behalf of all of us, just thank you for being that voice of clarity and positivity to to extend it beyond your values. Now, that being said, I know the number one question that we get is, you said you did bone marrow donation. There's two types of donations typically for an adult donor. So it was bone marrow. It was a bone marrow extraction from the hip, correct?
It was through my they had like like a needle on both wrists.
Sure. Okay, so that was the peripheral blood stem cell donation, right? Like the
Okay.
PB, they say like PBSC or something like that.
I
Does
think
that ring
so.
a bell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're both technically bone marrow donations. You're right, but
Mhm.
that one is where they
Stem
probably
cells.
did. Yep, yep. So they did like this workup up to the donation where they were injecting
Right.
you to kind of make you
Yeah.
superhuman. Is that right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
Okay. So talk about what you can remember. I mean, this was about 8 years ago. So what was that experience like? The good and the bad. What did it feel like going through it
Mhm.
afterwards? Whatever you want to say there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the I think it was like a week before I was having like an out-call nurse come and give me those injections like twice a day. Um, and that was kind of the first part for me that where I started to actually kind of feel, like kind of feel these like changes in my I just remember being super tired. And and for the first yeah for that week coming into it, I definitely that was kind of like I think the thing that I remember most is like um, the campus at Cal Poly is like really spread out, so you have to walk like probably I mean probably yeah 4 or 5 miles a day. I feel like I was just based on where I was living and stuff, but I remember just getting home just being so out of breath and tired. Um, and but that was kind of the only real I don't know, like side effect or I guess thing that I was feeling through that whole process. And then when I went to City of Hope, it was all I remember it all just being super, yeah, really like mellow, super seamless process. And they had gotten me set up um, with the yeah, one of like the bigger needles that was extracting was on I think my left hand, and then it was I was like seeing that whole like machine,
Right.
and then having it come around. And I remember I was studying. It was finals week, so I was like I was like trying to study for my finance final,
Oh, and that's finance too. Wow.
Yeah, because that's what my major was at the time, and so I was like just stressing on trying to study for that. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bring my textbook and I'm gonna like do all my notes while I'm doing it. And then I didn't realize that because the needle that's extracting, it's like it's big enough that they say you can't move your hand, and I'm left-handed, so I I was like I had it in my left hand, so I couldn't like take notes or anything. And so at that point, I was like, well, I feel like with something like this, like I should just like actually try to just soak it in. You know, I don't want to I don't want to just sit here and be stressing about my final, you know, as I'm doing something like this. So I just, yeah, I remember just kind of sitting there, and I think it was 5 or 6 hours that they had like some movies and stuff, and um, but I remember kind of after probably 2 or 3 hours, like really feeling like pretty drained. Yeah, like you can just feel like, I don't know, you can kind of feel that all of the stem cells or whatever that they had kind of been like ramping up that like for the week before, you could definitely feel that kind of like it's actually leaving your body, you know. Um, and so yeah, through the whole process, I think that was like my biggest takeaway. It was just kind of like there was no real physical pain. It's really just more of, yeah, like your body's just kind of feeling like kind of taxed a little bit and tired in that way. But yeah, so that was like, and then through the that I went home, and then I think it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks that I definitely was kind of just trying to slowly like get back in the swing of things physically. Um, and then after that bit of time, I was just like, yeah, back to normal. Just felt better than ever. So
That's great.
yeah, I think through like I know that the bone marrow where it goes into your hip and stuff is like probably much more of a painful procedure. So with the stem cells, it was more so of just like a real like tiredness, fatigue than pain at all, you know. Um, so yeah, that was like the I was more surprised on the like at the end of it, you know, like how long it kind of took my body to get back to normal. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, they had told me, you know, I figured I was like, oh, I'll be, you know, it's like a week or
Thing, you
a
know,
couple
yeah,
days, I'll be okay.
yeah.
So that was like the only real thing that I was like surprised about. But yeah, I remember getting the injections like before going there, and that was like kind of another like one of those other steps, similar to like when I was saying like I first even got the email about being a match, where I was like, okay, this is like real, you know. And yeah, like I remember signing the paperwork where they were saying that the the who I was donating to, they were gonna put them through like a terminal round of chemo, and so
Mhm.
like I had to sign pretty much committing to do it. And I remember that being another pretty big moment for me where yeah, it's just you know, it's like it just makes it all tangible, you know, like you realize
Mhm.
like through the process that you're like donating and it's a going to somebody, but when yeah, like once you're actually like this is the person, you know, and all that, it was like it kind of brings it all back home, and in a positive way, because obviously I was like planning on doing the whole thing,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was like there's all these little moments that kind of like tangibly bring it back to like what's actually going on and kind of like the gravity of it, you know. um and and those were some of like the key moments too, where you know like you're like, cool, this is like why I'm doing it. And yeah, it brings it back to that whole feeling that we were talking about earlier, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, for those that are watching, I had, you know, it's very common that what you went through is it's usually about 80% of those that go on to donate go through that PBSC donation where you're sitting in a chair, and it's very similar to like a blood transfusion or something like that. And
Hmm.
then that 80% or the 20% is the bone marrow, and this is usually and sometimes it's a choice between the donor and the doctor that's going to be doing this. And you know, it's a choice of what you want to do. It's easier, obviously, to do the PBSC, but in some ways, you can get a larger volume if you do bone marrow extraction. But of course, like you said, it's a little bit more involved. The good news is medical advancements have really, and anyone that's gone through a bone marrow recently, extraction through the hip, they can attest to this, but you know, they're put under general anesthesia, so you don't feel anything during the procedure,
Mm,
and it's still outpatient, so you still, like you, get to go home at the end of the day.
right.
But it's like falling on your tailbone, is what people say. It's similar to that. You're kind of on this discomfort when you stand up or move around for a few days.
Yeah.
You're achy, but they're like, you know, hey, I just what I did is
It's
way
worth it. Yeah.
right, right. So
Yeah.
I to finish this off, I got to ask too, because you know this is also not something that's in your control necessarily. But you did the donation. What did you know about the patient, and also did you learn anything after you donated? Have you got any
No,
updates?
yeah, I had just asked because I was curious. They had mentioned that it was I think he was like in his early 70s and had leukemia. Um, but yeah, through the process and just with like the anonymity and everything with that, that I was, yeah, I didn't hear from them. Um, I'm trying to think of how long. I think it was like 6 months was like the anonymity process, and after that, then they gave the patient like my contact information. And I never actually heard from them, but yeah, no, it was cool. I think like uh, I guess I always like, yeah, I had that kind of, I guess it was kind of expectation, like because I always was like, just based on like the first story that I heard that really like set it all off, is because it was
Hmm.
like after the whole thing,
I got to meet.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, to kind of like meet and have that connection and stuff. It was like, it was so cool. So I think I just like had this expectation of that, and so
Hmm.
as the time went by and like as the deadline came up and stuff, I didn't hear from him. I kind of remember just being like, at first I felt like I was bummed, but then at the same time I was like, well, this, I mean, if I'm like selfishly like bummed because they're not reaching out to me, like because I don't know, if anything, it was like, for me it was kind of a this other like realization where, yeah, like it wasn't about me, like I was like stoked to do it and everything. And so like I think through that, it like after not hearing from them and stuff, part of me was like, um yeah, just kind of came to the realization that it was like, that it wasn't for me to do it. So there's no
Hmm.
reason for me to be bummed about kind of not connecting with them, even though that was just some expectation that I had coming
Yeah.
into it. And I
Yeah.
think through the whole experience, and I don't know, if anything, it's kind of like you always have that sense of wonder, and like,
Mhm.
and and if anything, it's kind of that cool like mystery aspect to it, that you're always like, you're always just gonna kind of wonder. And I mean, in this day and age, but like people kind of have access to everything, and I feel like we're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
there, like all of us still kind of like to have this sense of wonder, like
Hmm.
in what I mean, even just, I don't know, kind of depends on everything, but like, yeah, I've kind of always just kind of, as time's gone on, just kind of liked how it all like worked out, because it's like allowed me to just, yeah, just kind of just think about it, and know that I did everything I can do. But yeah, just kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Yeah, it's tough, and I don't know if this part of it's changed over the years. I know that right now it's a full year has to go by before
that's what it
that
was. Yeah, it
that
was a year.
exchange, and so yeah. So another thing is, to your point, like you wanted to share your contact information, but it has to be both parties kind of saying yes, like they want to get in touch, and you know, to your point, you can't really control what the other person wants or doesn't want, and we also, you know, want to respect their privacy and whatever they're
For
going
sure.
through. But yeah, that you know, this, like you said, this was more than just doing that donation and helping a perfect stranger out and their family and their loved ones, all of the above, and their friends, as well as that individual. Um, and uh, and I usually ask at the end of these, like, what would you say to someone that's um, thinking about joining or thinking about, you know, will they go on to donate if they're called one day? I don't think I need to ask that, because I feel like you've answered that in this whole conversation. It's your story,
Yeah.
like your life. There's other things that we all have in our lives that shape who we are, but based on what you said, it really sounds like this experience was a pivotal moment in your life for you
Definitely,
personally.
definitely,
um, More than just helping someone out. It just helped you open up your eyes to other things that you can control that
for
can
sure.
make you and other people's lives better, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it just kind of helped me set like a trajectory, like personally, um, towards, yeah, just caring about like things that are important, and not getting worried about, yeah, things that are maybe more circumstantial or trivial in life that just don't matter. And and yeah, it's like it's definitely a rewarding experience feeling like you have something to give, um even if by like other standards you don't. Like I said, I was just a broke college kid, and but through the whole process, realizing that like your time and in some cases your health are things that you can share with people. And um and then, yeah, through that, as time goes on, like I think that you can find new ways to give, but like by kind of sparking the just like lighting the match, I think, in terms of just being able to feel that and like know that it's worth doing, like through your life, to feel like fulfilled and to feel like you're yeah, you're doing everything you can do, I think was super cool for me. So yeah, it was definitely, I think, a very like pivotal moment for me, um, to be able to do that when I was 19. Um, and I'm 27 now, so it's like I still think about it all the time. So it's definitely been super cool and rewarding for me. And I re-signed up, so now I'm just like hoping that it happens again. But I know how like just how blessed and how lucky I was to be able to do that when I was so young, because like you were saying, it's just some people sign up and they never get to. Like it's crazy to think that there's so many people that want to, and it's just not their time yet. So I definitely know and just realize how lucky I was to be able to do it.